Hello and welcome back to Rev Real Estate School. I'm your host, Michael Montgomery, and today what we're looking at is the career of being a real estate agent hard? Now, when I talk to new real estate agents, when they're joining our company, oftentimes I'll ask them, well, what brought you into the industry? And almost always they're going to say some version of autonomy and income potential, which is rightfully so. A lot of people get into this industry because they can create their own schedule, and the income potential, there's really no ceiling. So a lot of times we start to think to ourselves, is this career that hard? And here is the truth behind it. Being a real estate agent really isn't that hard. Now, it does have a fairly high failure rate, but when we consider the failure rate of being a real estate agent versus the failure rate of any other business out there, it's actually lower. Generally speaking, you'll hear anywhere from 80 to 82% of real estate agents will fail within the first 2 years. However, traditional businesses, 90% fail. So it's actually lower than a traditional business. Now, this career unto itself is actually not that challenging, and we're going to explore why. But first off, let's look at why a lot of people do end up failing. Now, generally speaking, it's going to come down to one of these three reasons. Number one, they're afraid of putting themselves out there. Number two, they don't necessarily have the grit to continue on when things are challenging. And number three, they're doing a lot of planning without a lot of doing. So if you're prepared to put yourself out there, work hard, and actually do versus plan, this career is for you. So let's take a look at a few reasons why this career isn't that hard. Number one, real estate transactions aren't wildly complex. There's only a few moving parts to a real estate transaction. We have price, possession, conditions, inclusion, some additional terms. But when we think of it in terms of other contracts out there, the actual negotiations are actually pretty straightforward. What makes them complex are human emotions. Absolutely, we do have to understand human emotions. The actual transaction itself isn't wildly complex. And on top of that, the data that's available to us is everywhere. We have access to all of the sales, all of the market data, the trends and what's going on. So if you have an understanding of how to use that data, actually putting together a real estate transaction isn't overly challenging. Now, number two, you don't need an advanced degree. As long as you've graduated from high school in most areas, you're going to be able to go out there and get your real estate license. And on top of that, it doesn't actually require a certain skill set. All the skill sets in real estate can be learned. In fact, when I got into real estate, I had very few skill sets when it came to actually talking to people, putting deals together, analyzing data, understanding legal contracts. I didn't know any of that stuff. All of this stuff is very learnable, and there's a lot of resources out there for us. So it's actually not overly challenging to actually get the license unto itself. But there is the cost of actually starting up in real estate. And oftentimes this seems quite concerning. But when we think about it, getting a real estate license is actually really inexpensive when we compare that to starting any other business. When you go and get your real estate license, you are starting a business. But generally speaking, when we're starting a business, our startup costs are massive. They can be extremely high. Maybe we have inventory. We have to hire on lawyers in order to actually build out our contracts. When it comes to real estate, our startup costs are very minimal. Yes, there's a cost to the course and getting started, but when we think of that compared to other businesses that we could start out there, the cost is a fraction compared to what it would cost to start a traditional business out there. Next, we have the concept of sales. So oftentimes people are scared off by the profession because they hear the word sales, or they think real estate agents are salespeople. When in fact, when you get into the industry, what you're going to realize is it's not sales at all. There's actually very few cases where you are selling yourself or selling a product. Yes, there are a few times when you're doing this, but generally speaking, this career is not sales, it's customer experience. We always think of real estate agents as salespeople, but they are not. They are customer service people. They are out there helping people get into homes. We're not selling them on any home. The only time we're really selling ourselves is when we are at a listing presentation and we're competing for a listing against other agents. Other than that, it's just providing an amazing experience. So there's a very small component of being a real estate agent that's sales. And frankly, every career out there has an element of sales to it. So if you don't see yourself as a salesperson, that's perfectly fine, because the majority of this career is actually not sales at all. Next, we have the concept of lead generation. Now, this is one of the main reasons why real estate agents go out of business, or any business goes out of business for that matter. It's just a lack of leads or cash flow. And here's the thing about real estate is the leads are everywhere. So regardless of what you're doing, neighbors out there playing sports, meeting people in public, these are all people that can potentially be looking to buy and sell real estate. So the leads are everywhere, and we don't necessarily have to spend a ton of money to actually go out there and find leads like other companies. Instead, we can just walk out our front door and leads are walking around. And that is one of the beauties of this career. But you may be asking yourself, isn't generating leads actually more challenging than that? Well, in fact, it's not. Lead generation really comes down to two things, and two things only. What are these two things? Number one, get off the couch. And number 2, talk to more people. That's really it. So if we increase the number of people that we talk to, we're going to increase our sales. And we almost see this exclusively in every real estate market, where the people that talk to the most number of people end up selling the most homes. And now here's also the reality of it. The best real estate agents technically aren't always the ones that are doing the most business. In fact, rarely are they. That's not to say they can't build fantastic businesses, but sometimes the most technical people who are very good at the transaction, maybe they're not getting out there and talking to enough people. Where somebody may not be as technical, but they're going out there and they're talking to more people, they're always going to outsell the person who is just very technically sound. Now, that's not to say you don't want to be technically sound. You always want to be working towards that. But what this is meant to do is just showcase the fact that if you want to increase your sales, you need to talk to more people. And that is as simple as lead generation truly is. And maybe this is in person, maybe this is online, neither really matters. If we increase the number of people we talk to, we increase the number of homes we sell. But then you might be thinking to yourself, isn't this a saturated industry? There's so many real estate agents out there. If you're not in real estate, you might think, okay, well, I already know 8 different real estate agents. But here's the reality of it. The majority of real estate agents aren't actually that good, in the sense that it's quite easy to get the license, but they're not dedicated to learning and improving and growing and understanding how to build their business. So oftentimes, the majority of real estate agents kind of sit back and wait for potential deals to come to them. So if you're a go-getter and you're able to get out there and actually start talking to people and learning a lot about the industry, you can excel and you will rise in the industry extremely quickly. You can get there in about 2 years, 2 to 3 years. But for most businesses, if you really want to excel, you're looking at 5 to 10 years in order to actually get your business up and running. In real estate, you can do this in 2 to 3 years, and you can actually end up being a top producer in that short period of time. And finally, there are a ton of resources out there, and there's a lot of support, be it at your office, online, through different mentors and peers. There's a lot of information and there's a lot of people out there to help support you. And because of that, there is actually a path laid out where generally, if I was starting some other company, oftentimes you're working with unknown unknowns, in the sense that I'm starting this company and there's not really a playbook. I'm just trying to determine what's working and double down on what's working and scrap what's not working. In real estate, it's very similar. However, there's a lot of playbooks out there to help you grow your business and people that have already done it before. So you can follow a framework that has worked for somebody else. So ultimately, is being a real estate agent that hard? Absolutely not. Yes, it takes grit. Yes, you have to be willing to face rejection. You have to be willing to put yourself out there. So all of those things are not easy, but starting any business is going to require you to do the same thing. So being a real estate agent really isn't that hard. It's a fantastic career with so much upside to it. And yes, you do have a lot of autonomy as well. Thank you very much for watching or listening to this episode. Feel free to reach out anytime at revrealestateschool.com and let us know your thoughts in the comments below, how you think about the role of being a real estate agent. Is it hard or is it not that hard? Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next lesson.